Hi YouTube! It's nearly a year since I reviewed the 1989 Batman film, and I thought it was timely to review Batman Returns with the Flash film, which stars Michael Keaton. I hope you enjoy this. Batman Returns is the 1992 sequel to its applauded predecessor, and Tim Burton was reluctant to direct it, as he deemed his artistry was moderated in the original Batman film. However, it was agreed that Burton would have more control over proceedings, and thus Batman Returns has more of Burton about it, his signature dark plots, than the 1989 film has. Before I start with the storyline, I will say this is not a film suitable for kids. Its themes are often sexual, dark, and there is more violence in this than the initial film. When I say dark, it is contextual. Viewers are used to seeing more graphic films these days, but Batman as a concept was light-hearted prior to the 1989 Batman film. Burton's Batmans was a step to the realising of the modern Batman films. Furthermore, many of the aspects of these films began with Keaton as Batman, the Dark Knight's voice changing when he dons his batsuit, for example. Batman Returns is idiosyncratic, which is befitting of the director's signature style, and is more of a recognisably Burton film than his original. The film starts with Danny Elfman's score, reassuringly Batman, recognisable in theme, but then switches to a more gothic pipe organ and orchestral theme to introduce a morally brutal scene. It is a historical scene, the vast gothic home of the Cobblepot family, rather bleak and gloomy. The scene is set in winter. We are shown a male socialite awaiting the birth of his heir, then screams and horror that ensue when said baby is born. The parents decide to put their baby, Oswald, in a cage and hurriedly put him on the river to an almost watery grave. Elfman's pipe organ and orchestral theme, used to accompany the penguins' scenes, provide a sort of scrambling awkwardness to pair with the future villain himself. As an opening scene, it alerts the viewer to a sense that this film will be harsh, unsettling, and controversial at certain points, although Oswald's parents aren't thankfully portrayed kindly. Luckily for Oswald, he is adopted by a family of penguins who raise him. He effectively then lives a life in the sewer, awaiting his revenge on Gotham City. Fast forward 33 years later, the city is cloaked in snow and it is set at Christmas. We are introduced to the odious Max Shrek, played by Christopher Walken, a successful industrialist, Gotham City resident. At his headquarters, he is in a meeting with the mayor about wanting to construct a power plant, namely for his benefit. His timid PA, Selina, appears, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, who Shrek patronises to his glee. Selina is an introverted character, and at home she is frustrated about her life and her dislike of Shrek is obvious. Shrek is brought to the monstrous Danny DeVito's Oswald, who is now called Penguin, against his will, by a team of circus workers, who Oswald is the leader of. Penguin has skulked around under the city and is au fait with Shrek and his nefarious practices and corruption. Shrek appeases Penguin and they conspire to stage a dramatic display, with Penguin appearing as virtuous as the consequence. The avian villain wants knowledge of his ancestors and forces Shrek to help him. Selina visits her workplace after Shrek has met with Penguin, and Shrek turns up. Selina alludes to knowing more of the actual nature of the power plant, the fraudulent scheme that it is. Shrek pushes Selina from the window, but she miraculously survives. Selina becomes the opposite to her previously mousy character, and when home she creates a cat-like costume for her to wear, whilst becoming somewhat of a vigilante. Selina as Catwoman is an icon. The costume is famous, it's overtly sexual, a sort of feline Lady Whiplash. Her voice changes when she is swathed in the costume, like Bruce Wayne's voice changes when he becomes his dual personality. Elfman's score for Catwoman, as she is known when under the guise like this, is more Bond girl, slinky, graceful, with a fluidity to her movements, and the musical theme relating to her is aptly feline. It's the opposite of Penguin's clunky, appropriate score. Selina, more assertive, comes to work, much to the horror of Max, but he has other issues to be contending with. However, when Michael Keaton's Bruce meets her, he is amused by her attitude and is attracted to her. Shrek encourages Penguin to campaign for the role of Gotham's mayor, as the current leader disputes the power plant. The plans for it will be of no consequence to Penguin. A discourse ensues much akin to what we would call as banter. The role appeals to Penguin's sense of entitlement, and he becomes rather popular after being manipulated by Shrek. His perception by the city's residents is positive as a result of his aforementioned staged valiant deed, and as with the majority of political campaigns, the opposition's method is highlighting flaws. Penguin's popularity allows him to utilise his army of circus performers to cause havoc, and Batman springs into action. Catwoman and Batman's paths cross, and they become enemies, but with a sexual current between them. To complicate matters, Selina and Bruce start dating, and it becomes apparent as to why Vicky Vale, his girlfriend from the original film, are not in a relationship. I think this is helpful actually, as some context is necessary to develop the story and to show Bruce's complicated personality. As a development, Batman is framed for the murder of the city's beauty queen, and Oswald was the culprit. The villain tasked his team to modify the Batmobile, and then proposes to Catwoman, who is repulsed. She is opposed to the death of the beauty queen, and, annoyed with her abhorrence towards him, Oswald pushes her off the building. Catwoman survives, whilst Batman heads to his Batmobile and discovers Penguin, Oswald's now preferred title, is controlling it remotely. The Dark Knight manages to achieve control of his vehicle, but before doing this, he records a derogatory rant by Penguin pertaining to Gotham City. Batman rigs the audio to Oswald's mayoral rally, which makes Penguin retreat to his lair, and he plots his frightful revenge. Selina and Bruce meet in an event, and they realise each other's dual personalities after Selina brings a gun to the party, intending to kill her narcissistic employer. The recognition that they are complex people with Avenger elements to their personalities is short-lived, as Penguin makes an appearance and announces his horrifying plans to the attendees. I will stop the narrative, as if you haven't seen this, it may be revealing. Burton was apprehensive to direct this film, as he wanted it to be quite different, not a continuation of the story and its details. An example of this would be not including Vicky Vale as Bruce's girlfriend. It was confirmed that the sequel was more of a Burton film than the director's initial Batman, and it definitely is typical of his style. I thought it was an interesting touch that Selina's complexion was almost snow-like when she was swathed in her catsuit. Bruce's complexion remains the same. Catwoman is more of a femme fatale character, arguably more moral than the other villains in the film. She is more multi-dimensional than Penguin, and certainly more so than the Machiavellian Shrek. Despite Penguin being the most malevolent antagonist, the scriptwriter, Daniel Waters, said that the actual unlawful people in the world are those who are not masked. Penguin's appearance was inspired by the German expressionist horror film The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, that family favourite, and there is a strong Gothic Victoriana element to his clothes, a potential elegance juxtaposed with his unkempt countenance. His portrayal is more of a tragic fiend, but this sits uncomfortably with me, as he would be deemed to be the most wicked by most. He has a choice to act as he does, irrespective of his dreadful life. Keaton didn't say the amount of lines he was supposed to, as he thought that was the best. When watched, it's more about his actions, as he is an introvert, but I liked the focus on Batman's character in Burton's original film. I've got this far, and I should mention the penguins, which featured in this film. More than 40 real penguins were used, and the rest were mechanical or people in penguin suits. The penguins had their own area and were given tons of ice and fresh fish and their own swimming pool whilst they were off set, and the set was called for the penguins. I love the scene in which Oswald addresses his huddle of penguins. There's lots of details to the set. The same curvature of the architecture, next to the stark, brutalist towers and Bauhaus, with smatterings of the Gothic, which are perfect for the shadowy vigilantes to navigate and provides an austere landscape. There is even a picture of Max Shrek with Arnold Schwarzenegger on the wall of his office about 10 minutes into the film, which is an amusing touch. The scene with the bird and Catwoman is not an effect, or not completely. She had a live bird in her mouth for a few seconds whilst the camera was rolling, and when she opened her mouth, the bird was all right, but it looked to anybody watching to be an effect. The initial part of the cage is an effect, however. It's a good film, and memorable for its creativity, style, and villains. Batman, Michelle Pfeiffer in bondage gear, and penguins. What's not to like? Thanks for watching.